This is Adam from Recreation Services, and today I'm going to be talking about dynamic warm-ups. I'm going to explain why dynamic warm-ups might be better for exercise or for sport, go over some of the principles in designing a dynamic warm-up, and kind of what the mechanisms are. The goal of the warm-up, as the name suggests, is to increase the core temperature of the body. An analogy could be a car in the winter time. You let idle for a little bit before you start driving it. It lets the engine warm up, lets the oil circulate through the engine. The same thing happens in your body. As you go through a warm-up, the core temperature of your body increases, which increases the elasticity of your muscles and your tendons and ligaments and connective tissues, as well as increases or allows your joints to become more lubricated and ready for movement. The benefits of a good warm-up are that it will help improve performance and reduce risk of injury. So if you've started a sport or an exercise without proper warm-up, your muscles aren't elastic enough yet and might lead to more strains and tears and pulls and things. An exercise that you're not fully warm yet, you also might find that your first couple sets of an exercise, for example, you're still warming up, so you're not quite getting the most out of those sets yet. So you'll find you're getting stronger throughout your exercise instead of hitting it kind of full stride. So when you're looking to warm up, and we're going to focus on dynamic warm-up today, but the reason a dynamic warm-up is better than, say, a static warm-up, like I mentioned, the goal of the warm-up is to increase your body temperature. Sitting and holding a stretch for 30 seconds, while it does kind of relax the muscle and stretch it out, it doesn't do much to improve or increase your body temperature. So going through actual movements, full ranges of motion, will do a better job of increasing your core temperature than, say, a static stretch will. So some of the principles when you're looking at creating a dynamic warm-up is that the warm-up should be progressive in the sense that you're starting with more general movements and working towards more specific movements to your exercise, as well as a progression in intensity. So you're starting off with very light, just range of motion, controlled movements, and then building into higher intensity, more impact and stuff like that. So that gradual increase in intensity will slowly allow or engage your body in producing more hormones like cortisol, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, which will be used to produce energy when you're doing, say, an endurance activity. And going through those larger range of motions and gradual controlled movements also kind of warm up your muscles in the sense that your nervous system is kind of figuring out the degrees of freedom within a joint. So it's kind of learning the range of motion that it can go through, so you have more unrestricted movement that way. So the beginning, whether you're training for, a run or a weight session, can be more or less the same in terms of going through some of those general movements, some of the range of motion kind of things. But then when you're training for or warming up for a run, then you might just start working in more specific things, so lighter intensity runs, and then building on that. That'll also help engage your aerobic energy system, so it'll make you more efficient when you start getting into your activity, and you'll be able to be in that aerobic zone faster and be more efficient. When you're training for strength, again, it can be more or less the same, some of those general movements, but as you start increasing intensity and specificity to your warm-up, you might start working in some more actual sets of exercise as a warm-up. And some things like, say, a squat can be used for a general warm-up for many movements because it does use so many joints. So you don't necessarily have to do a warm-up set or a bunch of warm-up sets of every exercise. But if you get a couple of fundamental multi-joint exercises, they can actually work as a warm-up for the rest of your exercise. So when you're warming up for a strength session, again, same thing, you're going to gradually increase weight, usually 1 or 2 sets with no weight, whether it's for a squat, for example, it would just be a body weight squat, maybe with a bar, 1 or 2 of those, and then 3 sets or so of progressing weight, bringing you very close to what your working sets would be. So when you're increasing weight in your warm-up sets, ideally the steps should be close to the same. You don't want to have a very big step and a couple of small steps. It should be fairly consistent, but it doesn't have to be exact, as long as it's more or less the same, building you up towards your working sets. Near the end of your warm-ups for your strength sets, you do want that last set to be a relatively heavy set, fairly close to your working set kind of intensity. It allows you to engage those higher threshold motor units that you might not activate if you're just doing a bunch of lower sets and then jumping into your working sets. However, while you're increasing that intensity, you can lower the reps. That way you're engaging those motor units and warming up, but you're not accruing any fatigue that's going to carry into your working sets. So you can still come into your working sets fresh, but those muscles fully activated. So in a sample, kind of a dynamic warm-up, you might see starting, say, from your feet, working your way up, or from the arms, working your way down, and gradually increasing in intensity. So for example, you would start with heel walks, so just walking on your heels for a little bit, toes up, coming back, focusing on walking on your toes for a little bit, so you're getting that full range of your ankles, but with low intensity. You might then progress to knee hugs, which will help warm up your glutes. You might do floor sweeps for your hamstrings, a standing glute stretch, couple steps, hold a stretch for a couple seconds, take a few more steps, hold for a couple seconds. Then you can start increasing your range of motion to, say, going into a lunge with perhaps a rotation, working into, say, a grapevine where you're going a little more dynamic, pogo hops to add a little bit more impact, and then finishing with, say, a running A turned into a run at the end. Upper body, same thing, starting with some holds. So reaching across the chest, hold for a second, couple steps, you reach with the other arm, hold for a couple seconds. You might then start with some gradual swings. So forward rotation arm swings, progressing then into a backward swing, a cross body swing. And then if you were going into a sport, you would throw in more specific things after that. So if you're going into an event like, say, volleyball, you might start hitting some balls, or if you're going into, say, baseball or something, start throwing some balls, things like that. For lower body, you would then add more agility-based things, maybe more impact, more jumps, more agility kind of things, and build your intensity there, and get a little more specific after that, and then get into your workout. I hope that helps. Feel free to add some dynamic warm-up and get the most out of your first sets coming in fully warmed up. Good luck.